paper. In accordance with Standing Order 38, a motion to adjourn the House is deemed to have been made and seconded at this time. Therefore, the question is that this House do now adjourn. The honourable member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise tonight on adjournment business and talk about a question that I put to the government last June. I asked the government about interest rates, and I pointed out the devastating effect that interest rates are having on Canadian home buyers and homeowners. And I asked them when the Prime Minister would take the advice of other liberals, including former Finance Minister John Manley, who asked them to take their foot off the inflationary gas pedal, stop pouring gas on the inflationary fire so that there is less pressure on interest rates so that we can avoid a crisis among mortgage holders and mortgage payers, and also get some relief to home buyers that amid this affordability crisis. So the response I got, Mr. Speaker, was really quite disappointing. The parliamentary secretary at the time didn't even make any attempt to answer the question. I'm not even sure if he heard the question because his response was totally unrelated to any of the elements that my question contained. He talked about small business loans. He actually said something that's false, Mr. Speaker. He said something. He actually should probably be brought to the House and made to withdraw his statement because he falsely claimed that opposition parties voted specifically against the CEBA support program for small businesses during COVID. That's an untrue statement. That's a fact. So he should actually apologize and withdraw the remarks. They were unparliamentary. They were false. But be that as it may, it gives me an opportunity tonight to get a little deeper on this issue, Mr. Speaker. And the truth is, Mr. Speaker, homeowners across Canada are concerned about whether they are going to be able to stay in the house that they already own. Mortgage payments are more than doubling for most mortgage customers when their mortgages renew. We have people that bought homes in 2018 with 5-year fixed mortgages that are maturing this year that are beside themselves because they don't know how they're going to make the payments. When people are seeing their mortgage payments go from $2,500 to $6,000 a month, Mr. Speaker, they can't do it. They don't have the income to do that. In some cases, they're going to lose their homes. Depending on what city they're in, they may not even be able to sell their home, depending on what their local market has done. And we saw transactions, Mr. Speaker, that couldn't close. At the time that I asked the question, I'd been speaking to some of the industry, and I had 20 years plus in the mortgage brokerage business before I was a member of Parliament. I was talking to some of my colleagues and some of the industry people in Calgary, and we have people that couldn't close on new construction deals because of the enormous shift in interest rates that had occurred. And this government is absolutely oblivious to this and the role that they have played in pouring inflationary gas onto the fire, Mr. Speaker. They have a responsibility to do something to rein in inflation. They talk about the support payments during a small period of the time in office, but most of the deficits that they have piled on were both before and after COVID or had nothing to do with COVID support payments. $500 billion plus in new debt, more than every government in history combined. And this has an effect on interest rates and on inflation. So I asked them again, when are they going to rein it in and do something to help quell the inflationary fire?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you know, I think at times Conservatives are challenged when it comes time to look at the reality of what's taking place, not only in our communities, but around the world. And first and foremost, I think it's important for us to recognize that Canadians are, in fact, hurting. We are very much concerned about the inflation rates, interest rates, and the whole issue of affordability. We don't need to be lectured from the Conservatives who have a mentality of the way you resolve things is just cut, Mr. Speaker, aimed recklessly in terms of where it is they would like to take the country, Mr. Speaker, at a huge risk. That's the conservative way, Mr. Speaker. We have been consistent. Compare Canada to any other country. When you take a look at, let's say, the U.S. or the G20, Germany to France to England, take a look at what they have for interest rates. Take a look in terms of what's happening on inflation, Mr. Speaker. In comparison, Canada is doing relatively well. But that gets completely lost on the Conservatives because they have a specific agenda of trying to say everything in the country is broken. They're like the Prince of Darkness. They have nothing to say that's positive about the economy, Mr. Speaker, about the hundreds of thousands of jobs that have been created, about the supports that have been put into place. It doesn't mean that we have to not provide additional support. We have legislation before us that the Conservatives continue to filibuster that's going to put money in the pockets of Canadians. That's going to ensure that we're going to see thousands of more homes being built. Have I got news for the member opposite in the Conservative Party, Mr. Speaker? No government in the last 50, 60 years has invested more in housing, Mr. Speaker. No government. Stephen Harper was an absolute failure when it came to investing in housing. One of the reasons why we have the shortage today is because of the former government's inability to have affordable housing. It was this government that came up with a housing strategy that ultimately has led to the repair of millions of dollars, thousands of homes in terms of affordable housing. It's this government that has supported things such as infill housing through nonprofit agencies, but not only nonprofit agencies, we're working with provincial entities to ensure that we can improve Canada's housing stock. Compare that to Stephen Harper, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we have seen substantial growth, and through that growth and through the pandemic, it has made some very difficult times for a lot of people. But let's put it into proper perspective, Mr. Speaker. Put it in a context which is fair. That is something in which the Conservatives are not. You know, I think it was $300 million that was spent, 99 homes built. The reality is that the Conservatives were missing in action when it came to the issue of affordability in housing. There's absolutely no doubt. They did not believe there was a federal role in the national government playing a strong leadership role. That's the absolute opposite to us. And when it comes time about dealing with things such as interest rates and the issue of inflation, you know, it's the member's leader. What did he have to say about the Bank of Governor, the Commissioner? He would fire him. Now he's kind of glorifying and putting him on a pedestal. But a number of months ago, he said he would fire him, Mr. Speaker. Flip-flop. Policies you cannot count on. It's risky to go with the Conservatives, I can tell you that much.
The honourable member for Calgary-Rocky Ridge.
I couldn't imagine anything riskier than another 4 years or any number of years with this government, Mr. Speaker. That's the greatest risk to Canadians, that this government should actually last much longer. They've got the coalition, of course, that are propping them up now. But, Mr. Speaker, we need a common sense government that can actually get serious about these issues facing Canadians. After this scattered 4-minute, mess here, we're left to conclude that this parliamentary secretary just is looking for a pat on the back for a job well done. I mean, Canadians, after 8 years, there are two kinds of families now in this country, Mr. Speaker. Those that own real estate before and those families that never will. That's the affordability legacy of this government. A generation of Canadians that have no hope and have given up on home ownership. That's this government's legacy.
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
And the slogans and the bumper stickers will do well under the Conservatives in terms of leading up from now to whenever that next campaign's going to be. They're more concerned about character assassination. They're more concerned about saying how broken Canada is and getting as many people worked up in terms of anxiety. They're not interested in resolving issues, because when it comes time for them to actually step up to the plate and put money in the pockets of Canadians, they choose to play games and filibuster, Mr. Speaker. That is the reality. All you have to do is take a look in terms of what members have actually done. Take a look at the affordability legislation. You know, moving motions of adjournment, concurrence motions. Mr. Speaker, you're not going to give me enough time to kind of explain to the member in terms of how much of a game this is for the Conservative Party. We take it seriously.
I don't know, I've done a lot of adjournment debates. It's exciting tonight.